In the quiet corridors of life, where whispers of betrayal linger like shadows cast in candlelight, lies a tale of latent power. Grace, encapsulated in a mist of silence, carried her years like a cloak woven from threads of patience and endurance. To many, she was just a widow recounting lost loves, but beneath her understated demeanor there was a spirit hardened by experience and softened by love. A woman who once danced in the light of love now stood in the twilight of overlooked respect, her voice muted, as if the world had pressed the mute button on her existence. Yet, in this silence, a fierce resolve brewed, a resolve unknown to those who basked in their own echoes and forgot the ripples they might create. Some betrayals echo louder in silence than in screams, resonating with an intensity unseen by those who perpetrate them. For years, Grace's world spun in quiet harmony, disrupted only by the subtle thefts and shadowed manipulation of Cynthia, her daughter-in-law. Cynthia, with her immaculate facade and deceptive charm, floated through the family fabric like an unseen thread, binding and unraveling with deft fingers. She was the kind of orchestrator who played life's piano with silent, deliberate keys, believing herself unseen by the unassuming eyes of Grace. Yet Grace had the wisdom of the seasoned and elder who knew the art of waiting. Her stillness was not inertia, it was the gathering of energy, a collection of moments soon to erupt with precise intent. She was not a queen of mountains but of valleys, seeing far across the landscapes of emotional treacheries laid bare before her. Cynthia had misjudged the silence as submission, that old paradox where the loudest should not be feared but those who watch in shadows and bear witness in silence. The theft of Grace's valuable pink diamond ring served as the inevitable crack in the shiny veneer of Cynthia's deceitfulness. This ring was no mere jewel. It was an heirloom representing stories of heritage and love passed down through generations. And this theft was not simply an arrogant display of possession, but a calculated move in a game Cynthia thought she alone was playing. The shade of this pink diamond echoed the rosy dawn of life's possibilities, the very dawn that Cynthia was attempting to eclipse with her manipulations and greed. Grace did not explode with the discovery. She did not spiral into a frantic search for restitution or validation. Instead, she absorbed the betrayal, letting it settle within her like an unlit flame, ready to illuminate and consume selectively. This quiet absorption was her strategy, a move from the depths where the unexpressed thoughts resided. Her silence was the soil in which plans of quiet vengeance took root, nurtured by the underestimated power her position held. In being dismissed and sidelined, Grace had unwittingly been handed a weapon, an unexpected opportunity to reclaim her narrative, her past, and her future. While onlookers might perceive Grace's passivity as weakness, it was the very essence of her strength, her ability to see beyond the immediate, to weigh each action, and to measure each response. There are men who are broken, and there are women who become sharper in the silence of betrayal. Her journey was not about regaining possession of a ring, but about reclaiming her dignity and setting the scales of personal justice right. With each passing day, Grace meticulously mapped out the path to exposing Cynthia, using the same quiet invisibility that Cynthia underestimated. She aligned herself with the power of legal knowledge and allies who valued justice over convenience. Unlike the lightning strike of anger that Cynthia expected, Grace's strategy was the calm precision of a sculpture meticulously chiseling truth from the marble of lies. Silence can be more deafening than any infamy. Her strategic patience was about to unveil Cynthia's deceit under a spotlight so blinding it would leave no shadow for escape. In this game of power and retribution, Grace was not the silent prey Cynthia imagined, but the silent storm biding its time. She was the still water poised to become the unstoppable flood, ready to wash away the deceit and reclaim her rightful place in her own story and that of her family's. In the confines of her once serene home, Grace found herself wading through a swamp of memories that had grown murky over the years, tarnished by Cynthia's biting words and would-be subtle manipulations. Each condescending tone, each dismissive glance had chipped away at a patience she had once deemed limitless. And now, revealing the raw truth required delving into the hidden depths of her past, a revelation of fragmentation that would reshape the dynamics within her family. Grace, whose presence had been so understated, was now approaching the point where the elegance of restraint met the necessity of exposure. Her late husband Mark had once been the keeper of secrets, a silent architect who ensured protection without ostentation. It was a balance of wealth and humility that Grace had always cherished, a legacy she hadn't realized was quietly slipping away under Cynthia's influence. For a decade, Cynthia had cultivated an image of entitlement, using her proximity to manipulate Liam, a son too loving or perhaps too naive to see the strings being pulled. Connection became currency in Cynthia's world, where affection seemed transactional rather than genuine. Navigating the layers of deceit that had enshrouded her family was like peeling an onion, each layer bringing forth tears but also clarity. Grace recognized that her own story, a complex web of fortunes meticulously concealed, had never been fully shared with her son. Mark's untimely death had left gaps, pockets of silence Grace had thought best left unfilled. And for this, she felt the sharp twinge of regret. The wealth and status Cynthia so fervently desired had been meticulously hidden not just from the world, but from within its very heart, her family. Grace's realization that Liam had grown up oblivious to the breadth of his inheritance was a lesson about trust and transparency. She saw Liam not merely as a pawn in Cynthia's game, but as a victim of the broad silence she had perpetuated. This awareness fueled her determination not just to reclaim what was hers, but to protect her son from further manipulation. Her late husband Mark, whose memory was now both a source of comfort and a reminder of unfinished tasks, would never have anticipated the storm brewing under his watchful protection. The heart of the mystery lay dormant within a collection of riches, jewels, and antiques, a treasure trove meant for secure keeping, its existence whispered between trusted hearts and never fully brought into the light. Grace recognized that these assets represented more than wealth. They were symbols of continuity, markers of personal history now threatened by Cynthia's greed. The emotional core of Grace's resolve unfolded into a strategic blueprint, a complex maneuver she planned with the precision of a chess grandmaster. Her aim was not simply removal of the poisonous influence in their lives, but an unmasking, a liberation of truth from deception in the public eye. Grace emerged from the background in her own life, assembling a coalition of allies steeped in legal mastery, with an acumen for discerning between ambition and avarice, a rarity in Cynthia's world. The journey thus far had taught Grace more than she had bargained for about the dynamics of family life and the consequences of unspoken words. She was learning to reclaim the narrative to ensure stories of wealth were matched by stories of worth. Each calculated step toward justice reframed her existence from passive participant to active agent. The reign of silence had come to an end. The era of justice was dawning, and silence was about to break just as surely as the first light touches the darkest skies. As we ponder Grace's transformation, the silent dignity with which she maneuvered through the tangled lines of family and betrayal invites a reflection. Might the true wealth not lie simply in possessions, but rather in the strength to shift one's destiny from within? Balm for the betrayal Grace now saw was not found in the immediate venting of anger, but in the patient orchestration of righteousness. And as she set the stage for her showdown with Cynthia, the world would be reminded that sometimes the underestimation of power is the most lethal flaw an adversary can possess. Grace's life was a labyrinth of secrets consciously woven by her late husband Mark to protect his family's legacy, while quietly shielding them from the clutches of those who sought status over substance. The hidden collection of jewelry and antiques, a chest of value brimming with rare and precious artifacts, became more than an inheritance. It embodied a testament to trust, love, and foresight. It was Mark's whispered promise to Grace that despite death's decree, he would not leave her vulnerable to the world's greedy machinations. Through this revelation, the contours of Cynthia's betrayal were drawn more sharply than ever. It wasn't just a pink diamond ring stolen from a nightstand. It was a symbolism of disrespect, an audacious miscalculation that underestimated the quiet power accumulating within Grace. This twist elevated Grace's quest for justice from a struggle for restitution to a necessary reckoning aimed at dislodging Cynthia's toxic influence. The stakes transcended familial ties; they touched on identity reclamation and the unyielding virtue of truth. The magnitude of the fortune was staggering, reshaping the narrative surrounding Cynthia's cunning thefts into something much larger, something more consequential. And herein lay a critical error of Cynthia's guile, a fatal oversight. She aimed at obtaining possessions, inadvertently igniting a process that would unveil her true persona. a person who would rather dismantle than foster, whose ambitions smoldered in shadows to sate an insatiable hunger for power and prestige. But in her frenzy to claim what was never hers, she forgot a profound wisdom. Appearance and reality are rarely reconciled in darkness. They demand the unyielding light of grace and justice. The layers of deception Cynthia had spun over the years, though masterfully woven, now began to unravel under the scrutiny of Grace's newfound allies. The alignment of fate seemed too perfect, as if justice long thwarted was rallying with unrelenting force. Through legal counsel and private investigators, treasures of truth surfaced. The evidence distilled from whispered confessions and paper trails revealed a tapestry of larceny jewelry given as gifts that vanished mysteriously, accounts manipulated with shrewd indifference, all carefully crafted to shield Cynthia's dishonesty. This was more than theft. It was a profound betrayal, one that evicted innocence and replaced it with rancor. Cynthia's actions had surged beyond trapping wealth. She had funneled away the very essence of familial continuity and unity. The plan, meticulously distorted over time, now demanded the price of penance. It wasn't enough for Cynthia to return what she had siphoned. She must now confront the damage seated within hearts she had divided and the public eye she had deceived. Grace's resolve morphed from stealth to strategy. She had spent years as a silent sentinel while Cynthia crafted her grand illusions, but now it was Cynthia stomaching Grace's retort. An elegant dance of rightful strategy ensued, one orchestrated with both dignity and inevitable justice. Beneath Grace's composed demeanor lay a force propelling her mission forward, striking at the core of Cynthia's indifference. Hour by hour, the progression of events unfurled with a precision that left no part of Cynthia's duplicity unexposed. What emerged was a confrontation of intentions, lies besieged by truth, avarice confronted by virtue. And so, just as the delicate lines between day and night are rendered by the horizon's edge, Cynthia's illusion met the formidable brightness of reckoning. Grace wore this mantle not as a weapon but as an emblem of liberation, a transformation that proved the power nestled in resolve and redemption. As this drama unfolded, it presented a testament to the power of timing and trust, broken but now restored. Cynthia's favorite game, the elevation of fantasy above fact, reeked of smallness compared to Grace's quiet fortitude. Her multiplicative betrayals only sharpened the blade of righteousness that Grace now wielded with poised, undisguised confidence. Amid this maelstrom, the inheritance gained new meaning. The trove of hidden wealth was not simply material gain, it had become a catalyst for the inexorable turn of justice's wheel. Grace, guided not by vengeance but by a yearning for equilibrium, established an enduring example for those betrayed but not broken. In her measured steps toward redemption, she had redefined what it meant to be wealthy, not in jewels or assets, but in the courage to stand reclaimed and the spirit made vibrant, restored to rightful depth. Thus Grace emerged not only as the guardian of her family's past, but as the architect of its future, forever changed, yet beautifully undeterred. This was her legacy, the fortitude found amidst chaos, the silent hope weaponized into clarity, and the enduring reminder that justice, no matter how quietly it treads, always finds its voice. Grace moved with the quiet precision of someone accustomed to going unnoticed. It was an astuteness honed over years of observing more than she was seen, and now she employed it with calculated intent. Her extensive inheritance, carefully catalogued and nestled away, became the foundation of her strategy. This vast hidden world of treasures, with its pink diamond ring as a beacon of betrayal, was no longer just a legacy, it was a fortress from which she would reclaim her power. Every step of Grace's strategic retaliation was crafted with the meticulous care of a seasoned tactician. She began by enlisting the expertise of a trusted lawyer, someone not merely skilled in legal wrangling but also aligned with her vision for redress. Together they built a framework designed to expose Cynthia's deceit without tipping any hands prematurely. It was a plan rooted not in revenge but in reclamation of dignity, a chess game where every piece moved toward inevitable checkmate. Such a transformation required Grace to redefine herself from an obscured specter in her own household to the rightful matriarch wielding the truth as her ally. She gathered documented evidence of ownership, creating a paper trail so irrefutable that even Cynthia, with her penchant for manipulation, couldn't spin an alternative narrative. It was a space where facts crushed fantasies, and Grace intended for it to be as public as her daughter-in-law's hubris. Anticipating every possible countermove, Grace built layers of protection around her assets. She declared her collection, legally converting whispers into recorded affirmations. Documentation became both shield and sword, setting the stage for Cynthia's disguised self-interest to unravel before their very eyes. The stage was set, signatures etched in ink that foretold justice's inexorable advance. Grace's resolve was a thing quietly fierce, embodying the adage that still waters run deep. She knew the weight of Cynthia's duplicity, how it seeped into family ties like poison, eroding trust, threatening to fracture her life's work. Thus, reclaiming her legacy became more than a personal vendetta. It was a fight to secure the integrity of her family's future. The practicality of her legal maneuvers provided a framework grounded in unemotional logic. Yet they underscored an emotional victory. Each signed affidavit and sealed document was a testament to a life no longer willing to be overlooked. It was the methodical dismantling of a narrative of helplessness, replacing it with a chronicle of strength found in patience and precision. Concurrently, she subtly began transitioning her son's allegiances, not through manipulation but through enlightenment. By revealing shadows Cynthia had cast over their lives, Grace drew Liam closer to this undeniable truth. It became a chorus that gradually rose above Cynthia's deceitful whispers, a symphonic return to familial fidelity. As Grace laid out her path to restitution, she established a prelude of controlled escalation. Her choice of venue for unraveling Cynthia's facade was deliberate, a gala steeped in significance, a mirror reflecting Cynthia's delusions of grandeur back upon her. The invitation list, curated with the precision of an artist selecting colors, ensured the right witnesses for Cynthia's comeuppance. Here Grace traded secrets for transparency under the glaring lights of justice's stage. This phase of transformation was not hers alone to bear. She took care to weave support systems around her actions, allies who would carry forward the banners of truth and resilience. In doing so, Grace ensured that the unraveling of Cynthia's schemes would also be a collective triumph, a victory for every voice marginalized heard at last. In meeting each turn with strategic empathy, for even in seeking justice, Grace held space for the complexity of human frailty. She redefined what it meant to wield power. It was a reclamation forged not in spite but in the purity of restored balance. As she moved toward the crescendo of her meticulously orchestrated plan, a new legacy was being written. In it, Grace stood as both antagonist to betrayal and protagonist in her own unwavering journey. With this tapestry of retribution, woven with such deliberate care, one could sense the inevitability of Grace's eventual triumph. Each deed a calculated movement on a grand chessboard, her silent hope became a clarion call to others who found themselves edged into a narrative of marginalization and mistreatment. As the narrative arched toward climax, Grace's endeavor became a clarion lesson in the victorious pursuit of truth and justice. And so, the gears of her strategic retaliation turned, calibrated by Grace's hand, a hand that had once been dismissed but now sculpted a future as resolute as the past it challenged. The gala was an event to remember, the kind of glitzy, glamorous affair where society's elite mingled, exchanging polite laughter over sparkling champagne flutes. It was at this very event that the tides of fate converged with the machinations of careful planning. Cynthia, resplendent in her borrowed finery, navigated the crowd with the poise of someone who imagined her reign unchallenged. Little did she know the very foundations beneath her feet were crumbling, courtesy of the woman she had long underestimated. As Cynthia basked in the glow of false admiration, her thievery concealed beneath layers of silk and savvy, the walls began to close in. To those unaware of the undercurrents, it was another extravagant gathering. But in the shadows, the law was taking its rightful place in the spotlight. As the elegant night orchestrated by Grace's meticulous strategy unfolded, the serene mask Cynthia wore slowly unraveled. The quiet entrance of the police into such a venue was an art form in itself. With subtle authority they approached Cynthia, their purpose clear, unambiguous. Amidst the tinkling laughter and clinking glasses, the moment came, a silent yet thunderous rebuttal of Cynthia's entire facade. The handcuffs clicked into place, a sound as final as any note in the symphony of karma that played by Grace's design. Eyes wide, Cynthia stuttered defenses, her polished narrative swiftly crumbling as the evidence, damning and undeniable, was laid bare before her and the beholding public. The pink diamond ring, once believed lost, glittered under the crystalline chandeliers, a stark testament to her duplicity. Grace remained a figure of serenity as she witnessed the spectacle, Cynthia's humiliation, becoming a public spectacle, her status swiftly devoured by the growing murmurs of disbelief and judgment. Grace's calculated silence during this public reckoning spoke volumes, a reassertion of dignity once dismissed. While Grace had often been mistaken for weakness, her silence at this moment was the voice of irrefutable strength. Her quiet dignity turned the impetus of shame upon Cynthia, who had once toyed so maliciously with trust and familial bonds. Amidst this tableau of justice, unraveling Grace's subtle empowerment resonated. The dramatic irony of Cynthia's self-crafted downfall lay in the simplicity of Grace's righteous patience and kindness. The same qualities that made her a target had in the end armed her with the tools of serene vengeance. Through this public, humiliating reckoning, Grace's narrative transfigured into one of empowerment, a demonstration of quiet strength roaring louder than Cynthia's deceit ever could. The arrest was more than mere justice. It was a restoration of equilibrium within the familial order, a clarion call heralding the advent of truth. Grace's whispers of vengeance had crescendoed into the thunderous applause of karmic consequence. In the court of public opinion, where once stood the specter of an injustice veiled, now a triumphant validation of Grace's unwavering belief in justice emerged. Cynthia's arrest brought to fruition a painful yet redemptive moment, clearing the path back to familial harmony for Liam and Grace. The dichotomy of the event exposed the futility of manipulation, the vapidity of artifice. Here, authenticity won, championed by a resolute matriarch who had elegantly dismantled the web of deceit spun beneath her roof. Where betrayal and arrogance had sown discord, the arrest promised the blossoming of new dynamics rooted in honesty and respect. Grace's gaze, calm and unyielding, held Liam's in a silent, poignant exchange. Here lay the opportunity for reflection and growth, a slate cleansed of pretense. Watching his wife escorted away, Liam's eyes mirrored a soul confronted with the specter of its own complacency. The moment of public comeuppance carried with it the seeds of new beginnings, beckoning questions of loyalty and the unswerving light of accountability. As Grace acknowledged the unfolding scenario, she knew now was the time to remind Liam of what truly mattered, the intangible wealth of integrity and familial respect. It was a moment not just for reconciliation, but for recalibration, a time to foster a bond reforged not in the image of material inheritance but in the quiet fortitude of shared values and love's true legacy. In this shared tribulation, amid the chaos of unwelcome exposure, lay the promise of a relationship renewed and realigned. In the dimly lit aftermath of exposure and deceit, Grace found herself face to face with her son Liam. The tension in the room was palpable, a silent storm brewing beneath hushed whispers and unspoken truths. Liam stood there, unraveling piece by piece each accusation against Cynthia, a fallen domino, revealing the fragile construct of his own convictions. He had been a willing participant in a charade, painted in falsehoods and gilded pretenses. But here, in the stark embrace of undeniable reality, complacency had no hiding place. Grace's unwavering gaze fixed on him, not as a mother scorned, but as a stern matriarch in the throes of restoring familial balance. Her unyielding presence spoke louder than any tirade, manifesting both disappointment and an unconditional yearning for regeneration. She demanded accountability not in words but in silent expectation, a call for Liam to rise above the debris of his misguided trust and align with the true values of kinship and integrity. He stood there, grappling with the consequences of his indifference, each revelation like salt on the wound of his already beleaguered conscience. Cynthia's lies, a web expertly woven, had blinded him to the virtues his family stood for and severed the tether of loyalty that once bound mother to son. It was time for a reckoning. Time to discard the illusory comfort of ignorance for the rigorous path of introspection and growth. In this shared moment of exposure, Grace offered Liam a chance for atonement. Her demeanor was unflinching, yet there was compassion woven through her firm resolve, a mother's hope that her son would reclaim his path. It was a challenge presented with love, demanding he confront the choices that had led him astray. The riches of family are not measured in jewels or currency, but in the steadfast pillars of trust and respect that support even the most intricate bonds. The truth pierced through the air like an inevitable storm, and Liam turned inward, a man adrift on the sea of his own failings. Each confession about missing heirlooms and financial missteps was a blow redirecting his compass toward truths long buried under convenience and willful ignorance. Grace knew that this journey was his to navigate. She could guide, but he had to choose the course. Her silence in that room spoke volumes, each unuttered word a testament to her wisdom and restraint. Grace's victory was not in the defeat of her adversaries, but in the seeds of renewal she planted, hoping they would flourish under the care of a reformed family. Liam was tasked with nurturing them, reclaiming his place not as a passive participant, but as an active custodian of legacy. In the days that followed, the revelations of Cynthia's broader schemes came to light. The intricate layers of betrayal and self-interest were revealed like a puzzle assembled from hidden pieces. Grace's instincts had been astute, and as each layer of Cynthia's deceit unraveled, so too did the potential for growth and reparation take root within the family. The journey forward was fraught with challenges, but it was a path worth traversing. Grace's revelation to Liam, that confrontation and introspection were not punishments but opportunities for renewal, would serve as his guide. He could either languish in regret or rise anew fortified by the wisdom gained from his mother's unwavering example. This was not merely a tale of betrayal and vindication, but a testament to the enduring power of familial love and resilience. In walking the line between confrontation and compassion, Grace had charted a course for her family to follow, leading them not into the depths of bitterness, but toward the heights of understanding and unity. The future held no guarantees, but Grace's legacy was already at work. Her quiet strength and determination had ignited the spark of change in Liam, one that had been dormant under the shadow of deception. In embracing the journey of self-discovery, he would rebuild not just himself, but the very essence of what it meant to be part of a family, reconnecting the frayed threads of trust and forging a stronger bond with every step forward. Grace's eyes widened slightly as the investigator laid yet another file on the table, a silent testament to the meticulous web of deceit Cynthia had woven through the fabric of their lives. It was as if she had lived within a parallel universe where her whims dictated reality, twisting honesty into something malleable for her gain. As each piece of evidence was revealed, it was like watching a tapestry unravel its intricate deception, becoming more apparent thread by treacherous thread. Yet even beneath the shock there lay a grim satisfaction for Grace. The truth had emerged, staining Cynthia's carefully maintained facade and stripping away the thin veneer of innocence. Cynthia's betrayal was not noble in its ambition, but lazy in its reliance on familial trust. The investigator meticulously detailed accounts and transactions, each serving as another nail in the coffin of Cynthia's deceitful persona. Missing family heirlooms, hidden transactions, and unauthorized withdrawals painted a sordid picture. A substantial portion of Grace's hidden fortune had been targeted, siphoned away under ambiguous pretenses. The audacity astounded, but it was the brazenness that truly solidified Grace's resolve. As the layers of Cynthia's deceit were laid bare, Liam sat quietly beside Grace, absorbing the extent of his wife's duplicity. The murmur of disbelief bubbled beneath his placid facade, contrasting the tumult within him. Denial no longer shielded him as it once had. The harsh illumination of reality was unavoidable, and with it came a stirring of something he had not felt in a long time, shame mixed with liberation. Here was his mother driven by a singular purpose of unearthing the truth, displaying an iron will and solidarity that had been obscured by the shadows of Cynthia's manipulations. Cynthia's strategy had hinged on manipulation, the ultimate goal obscured by misdirection, but in her quest for gratification, she had underestimated Grace's resilience. Amidst these revelations, the potential for comprehension and eventual healing began to take root. Not vengeance but vindication drove Grace forward, an insatiable need to protect, to mend, and reclaim what had been deceitfully plucked from her grasp. Never again would she allow the threads of her life to be woven by another's lies. Understanding the full measure of Cynthia's calculated theft took more than just revealing facts. It required peeling back the layers and grappling with the complexities of betrayal. It was a cathartic process, one that Grace navigated not just for herself but for her family. For you see, betrayal never exists in isolation. It is an act that ripples through the delicate waterways of familial bonds, causing fractures that can only mend with truth. The revelations left a mark on Liam, instigating a profound reassessment. Questions loomed like silent sentinels. How could he have been so blind? But beneath these doubts simmered a determination to rebuild, not for Cynthia's sake, but for his own integrity and his mother's peace. In the light of these discoveries, Grace's son found himself grappling with a renewed sense of purpose, an opportunity not only to heal wounds, but to forge a new path grounded in transparency and respect. Cynthia's deception was not just a financial attack, it was a siege on trust and vulnerability. But Grace turned this around, opting to take these adversities and mold them into a banner of fortitude, carrying the legacy of her family forward unblemished and renewed. The process involved more than private revelations, it entailed public accountability. In pressing charges against Cynthia, Grace cast aside any lingering hesitations, asserting that justice wasn't merely a concept, but a tangible force made of actions and decisions, each as precise as it was unyielding. It was not enough to retrieve lost assets. The stolen trust had to be rehabilitated within the courtroom of familial relationships. The ensuing legal proceedings would not only serve as recompense, but set a precedent, a fortified warning that betrayal bears consequences as inescapable as they are deserved. As the weight of the investigation settled, new paths began to unfurl. Grace's resolve laid a blueprint for Liam, and even for the wider family, a testament to the resilience that thrives even amidst chaos. Her actions, deliberate and bound with integrity, underscored a truth that echoed within the hearts of each family member. Betrayal might sever ties, but it also paves the way for a resurgence, one where trust can be reborn stronger than engreased before. The story of Grace's meticulous journey through the labyrinth of deception is a narrative of tenacity, illustrating that even amidst the darkest of revelations, there lies the potential for rebirth, transforming betrayal into a testament of renewal and the relentless pursuit of family's true essence. As the courtroom drama began to unfold, Grace found herself delving deeper into the labyrinth of Cynthia's machinations. She unearthed a network of deceit so intricate it almost seemed fantastical, as if straight out of a crime thriller. However, this was no fiction. It was a dark reality that had embedded itself within her family fabric, an abominable stain woven by Cynthia's duplicitous nature. Through her legal team and the relentless efforts of a skilled private investigator, a broader portrait of Cynthia's devious intentions came into view. The evidence spoke of a history of financial manipulation and a premeditated scheme seeking to challenge Grace's mental competency. The objective: to seize control of the inheritance with an audacity that defied both familial bonds and moral constraints. This revelation intensified the drama and plunged the family into a vortex of moral and emotional turmoil. Betrayal had transformed from a personal grievance into a systemic onslaught against Grace's legacy. Understanding the depths of Cynthia's deceit unlocked a new layer of motivation for Grace. This wasn't just about restoring stolen items or mending fractured trust. This was about defending her identity, her dignity, and the honor of her late husband's memory. The stakes had mounted far beyond personal vindication. They now encompassed protection of future generations from conniving predators lurking beneath the guise of camaraderie. As Grace absorbed the enormity of Cynthia's sinister designs, she resolved to become the spearhead against this betrayal, making it not just her mission but her crusade. She learned that resilience wasn't merely about enduring adversity but also about waging a relentless battle for what is just. Her steps were marked with purpose, her tactics sharpened by the resolve to let no act of treachery escape unpunished. Each move in this legal chess match was intentional, aimed at turning the very systems Cynthia sought to exploit against her. Yet this unfolding drama was not confined to the sterile walls of a courtroom. It resonated beyond into the hearts of the family, especially Liam. For him, the journey was bewitching, pushing him to confront his implicit faith in Cynthia. It carved an unyielding question into his conscience, urging introspection about his own roles in these dynamics. The revelations mounted pressures not just in terms of loyalty, but on the broader spectrum of familial duty and introspection. Could he truly preserve the family values he once cherished when they had been so tarnished by deception? Grace's unwavering stance reverberated as a beacon for the family, a stark reminder that truth defends itself through action. That's where she found a resolute peace amidst the chaos, by ensuring that the consequences Cynthia faced were unavoidable and marking the unmistakable line between right and wrong within her family's ethos. As each court session unfolded with its parade of evidence and charge statements, Grace emerged not just as a plaintiff but as a leader taking back agency, redefining the family's narrative. The courtroom battles were etched as pillars of transformation, laden with the severity of loss but also the potential of renewal. Through them, Grace sculpted a new reality where wrongdoers were not given shelter beneath her family's prestige. The extensive network Cynthia had hoped to leverage became mere footnotes in the broader tale of redemption and reclamation, overseen by Grace's unyielding stewardship. Whether watching from the sidelines or actively engaging in every testimony, the family absorbed these lessons rooted not just in legal triumphs but infused with emotional resilience. Grace had become the living testament that one could, through acts of justice, rebuild not just relationships, but a foundation that could withstand even the most violent of emotional storms. Her saga illuminated the path for anyone feeling shackled by deceit that rising again wasn't merely possible, it was requisite for the honor of those who once trusted too readily. The courtroom epic wove its final chapter with echoes of lessons learned and paths realigned. Grace stood victorious, not just legally but morally, marking the threshold of renewed familial harmony, carved through perseverance, and the will to never again stand in the shadow of treacherous intent. This was not merely a story of reclaiming what had been wrongfully taken. It was the narrative of reshaping the very essence of her family's future, fortified by lessons of the past, and the strength to guard against their repetition. Pulled from the shadows of betrayal, the tale of Grace continues to unfold with the weight of lived experience and the clarity of perspective forged in the fires of conflict. Her choice to pursue justice against Cynthia is propelled by more than just a thirst for retribution. It is fueled by a deep-seated desire to redefine her narrative and restore dignity to a family scarred by deceit. This decision is not made lightly, for it is laden with the realization that the battle ahead will require the strength of a mother's heart and the strategic prowess of a seasoned tactician. As the courtroom drama subsided, leaving behind echoes of battles both won and yet to be fought, the story of Grace transcended its personal confines, evolving into a saga of empowerment for those who, like her, had trusted too readily and been bruised by betrayal. Her victory was more than a resolve to vindicate herself. It was a testament to the resilience of those who refused to be defined by the malicious intents of others. While Cynthia's manipulation and theft had seemed like an unbreachable fortress, Grace's response illuminated pathways previously obscured by the clouds of deception. Her legal maneuvering was both a calculated effort to reclaim what was her own and a broader initiative geared towards educating others about safeguarding one's own legacy. In Grace, they saw a figurehead rising from obscurity, illuminating a trail for those who had walked the treacherous path of misplaced trust. Navigating the familial aftermath of courtroom revelations, Grace and Liam embarked on the arduous journey of redefining their bond. It was a voyage characterized by moments of vulnerability and candor, peeling back layers of misconceptions and rebuilding the trust that Cynthia's machinations had sought to erode. In their conversations, honesty became both their sword and their shield, cutting through the shadows of their past while guarding against the creeping tendrils of distrust. Amidst the public eye that now scrutinized their every move, Grace emerged as a relatable beacon for families grappling with the complexities of deceit and betrayal. The media storm, once a feared adversary, became an unlikely ally in her quest for justice, spreading her story to the farthest reaches of the populace. Her transformation from a victim to a vanguard was emblematic not just of personal triumph, but of a moral victory for those who had long harbored their wounds in silence. Fueled by this newfound platform, Grace didn't simply revel in her personal vindication but chose to channel her experiences into advocacy. Her name became synonymous with a movement that championed the rights of the elderly, ushering in dialogues that had previously been muted by societal apathy. In the corridors of power and amidst grassroots gatherings, she became the voice that rang clear and true, urging vigilance and engagement, where passivity and neglect had once ruled. As Liam began his own journey towards personal redemption, his introduction of Natalie to his mother represented more than just a new chapter in his life. It was a symbolic rupture from the past, a testament to the changes within him, molded by the crucible of recent events. The gradual mending of ties between mother and son mirrored the broader narrative of growth and forgiveness that lay at the heart of their shared story. With the courtroom battles firmly behind her, Grace found herself at a crossroad, not one characterized by indecision, but by potential. She was offered the chance to become a voice for those silenced by circumstances. An opportunity to host a show focused on elder exploitation ignited within her a new sense of purpose. This endeavor was not just about bringing awareness to pressing issues, but about providing solutions and empowering others with the knowledge and courage to reclaim their stories from the clutches of exploitation. The strength of Grace's character lay not in the avoidance of hardship but in her unwavering commitment to confront it head-on. Her journey was not simply about the restitution of her past, but about forging a future that reimagined the dynamics of power and trust within families. Through her relentless pursuit of justice, she laid bare the vulnerabilities intrinsic to human relationships while embodying the potential for redemption and growth. Thus, her story crafted a new legacy, one not marred by the specter of unworthiness, but emblazoned with the conviction of a life lived authentically, courageously, and with unyielding integrity. For Grace, the personal became universal, her narrative an enduring testament to the indefatigable spirit of those who dare to confront betrayal and rise. The swift transition of Grace into a national cornerstone for elder rights advocacy was both unexpected and revolutionary. The media frenzy that ensued following the legal unraveling of Cynthia's deceit not only captivated public attention, but ignited a broader discourse on elder exploitation. Grace had unwittingly become the emblem of resilience against familial betrayal, a transformation that resonated with audiences far and wide. In her newfound role under the media's spotlight, Grace wielded her story as a beacon for those perhaps too afraid or too sidelined to speak up. She exemplified the sheer power of taking charge, not just reacting to wrongdoing, but meticulously planning for justice. Her narrative, wrought with personal pain and emancipation, resonated throughout the nation, uniting voices that had long been stifled under similar oppressive circumstances. The interviews, the television segments, and the articles all spoke of her bravery and determination. But it was the way she dissected the layers of emotional manipulation and financial exploitation that gripped the collective consciousness. Viewers were not merely passive recipients of a revenge drama. They were compelled to reflect on their own familial ties and the often ambiguous balances of power that lingered within them. Grace's journey became a clarion call to scrutinize these dynamics. She used her platform wisely, advocating for reforms that were desperately needed in the system and underscoring the necessity for vigilance when it came to the rights and dignity of the elderly. Each appearance in front of the cameras expanded on strategies to identify and combat exploitation, setting a precedent for many to reclaim their narratives from the depths of silence. Yet the tale of revenge was tempered with an understanding of the deep psychological scars such deceit could leave. Grace was not merely out to punish, but to educate and empower. There was redemption in admitting one's own missteps, in acknowledging that the road to recovery is paved as much by forgiveness as by the acknowledgement of the truth. It was from this raw space that Grace reached out to those like Liam, who silently carried the weight of being indirect parties to the horrors they witnessed. Moreover, Grace's campaign against elder exploitation sparkled with nuance, recognizing not only the potential villains but also the accidental co-conspirators, those who, through ignorance or apathy, allowed such betrayals to bloom. By connecting with these individuals, she sought to instill a responsibility for vigilance and action in places where connections and relationships could be an individual's shield against similar fates. What was profound about Grace's journey was the clarity with which she maintained her perspective. The more media platforms, influencers, and advocacy groups broadcasted her message, the more she uncovered her next layer of advocacy, going beyond a single case of personal revenge to fostering a movement of education and reform. Her initiative touched institutions, awakened policymakers, and resonated through educational campaigns designed to fortify the elderly with awareness and protection. As her influence grew, so did the opportunity to draw real change from tragedy. She became not only a figurehead of hope, but one of tangible action and reform. Grace refused to settle into the role of a symbolic martyr. She was an active architect of reformations that addressed both the surface and the root causes of elder exploitation, systemic, legal, and familial. Her engagements began shaping discourses at both grassroots and legislative levels. Workshops, seminars, and public speaking engagements became the avenues through which she disseminated the insights born from her experiences. She facilitated dialogues that empowered other seniors, encouraging them to voice their trials and tribulations. The momentum behind Grace's impact burgeoned into a movement, one that reached beyond the confines of her personal story and suggested larger, widespread implications for the hundreds of thousands yearning to find their own courage to stand against injustice within their families and communities. The media narrative, which initially aimed simply at sensational drama, transformed in tandem with Grace's own growth into a portrayal of endurance against the tides of betrayal and the determination to make these struggles an axis for broader societal change. She would not let the platform she had gained dissolve into the ether of yesterday's news. Instead, she shone as a beacon for change and reform, reflecting a powerful truth that sometimes it takes the courage of one to inspire the courage of many. And with each camera flash and headline, Grace's message was clear: reclaim your power, stand steadfast in truth, and embrace the arduous journey towards forgiveness and reconstruction. Anyone observing from the sidelines was urged to not only watch but participate in this reformation, proving that heartache can indeed become the bedrock upon which new worlds are built. Grace's resilience had taken her far beyond personal vindication. As Cynthia faced justice, Grace and her son Liam embarked on the challenging journey of rebuilding their fractured family. This was not just about restoring what was lost, but about reshaping relationships into something stronger, more authentic. The vestiges of betrayal lingered, but they laid the groundwork for new understandings, new reconciliations. This was a test of faith in familial bonds, whether they could withstand the fractures inflicted by disloyalty, greed, and deceit. For Grace and Liam, the path to healing was not straightforward. Trust once broken is not easily repaired. The memories of Cynthia's manipulations and misdeeds were fresh, casting long shadows over every interaction. But with Cynthia's diversionary tactics unveiled and her influence dissipated, they could finally address the unspoken truths. Grace, once forced to silently endure the disdain and exploitation, now stood firm in her hard-won autonomy. Her newfound strength became the cornerstone upon which they commenced building a new family dynamic, one that required vulnerability as much as it required strength. For Liam, seeing his mother reclaim her agency forced him into introspection. The weight of guilt and shame bore heavily upon him as he grappled with the complex emotions of complicity and negligence. Acknowledging his own role in overlooking Cynthia's behavior was difficult but necessary. He realized the emotional toll his silence had exacted on Grace. It was an uncomfortable reckoning, yet it was also cathartic, a purging of old narratives that bound him to a false sense of loyalty. The process of atonement began with communication, honest, unflinching conversations that peeled away layers of pretense and secrecy. Simultaneously, Grace approached this new beginning with a cautious optimism. She realized that forgiving Liam was pivotal not only for her healing but for his growth as well. Together they navigated the emotional landscape of their relationship, acknowledging past mistakes and rekindling the familial bond that Cynthia had almost permanently severed. Their conversations often veered into explorations of shared history moments that, in hindsight, had been misinterpreted or ignored. This honest dialogue was a balm for old wounds and a foundation for building mutual respect. The legal consequences Cynthia faced were public, but the emotional absolutions Grace and Liam sought were private and profound. Family gatherings resumed with a sense of fragility and hope, two forces inexorably intertwined. They re-established traditions, infusing them with new significance. Annual trips, Sunday dinners, garden picnics, all became times for reflection and connection, each reinforcing the fragile but growing trust. Each meal shared, each laugh exchanged became emblematic of a new era, one defined by sincerity rather than pretense. Liam's transformation extended beyond his relationship with his mother. In seeking to repair the past, he also adjusted patterns in his personal life. Grace detected warmth in his interactions, a newfound appreciation for authenticity. As part of his evolution, he introduced Grace to Natalie, a woman whose kindness and sincerity struck a clear contrast to Cynthia. Grace observed Liam's attentiveness and respect towards Natalie, recognizing it as a direct reflection of the lessons hard learned. Together, Grace and Natalie formed a bond, forged not out of obligation but through genuine affinity, a testament to Liam's growth and a beacon of hope for future harmony. Throughout this journey, Grace's experience and insight sparked transformation within her community and far beyond. Her story had moved others not only to empathize but to act. Institutions that had once dismissed elder concerns now felt the pressure to reform, driven by Grace's compelling testimony and determination. Her advocacy shone a light into the shadows of society's desirables, making it clear that no corner was too hidden for justice to invade. With each public appearance, each meeting with lawmakers and community leaders, Grace insisted on one consistent message: family bonds, when nurtured with diligence and compassion, have the potential to heal even the deepest rifts. Her experiences became cautionary tales, yet also stories of hope, illustrating that it is never too late to seek redemption or to rewrite narratives to encompass integrity, love, and respect. In reclaiming their family, Grace and Liam exemplified a profound reality. Despite betrayal's arduous journey, healing and reconciliation remained eternally possible. Destruction, after all, often precedes regeneration, and from the ashes of their troubled past emerged a new foundation, stronger and more resilient than ever before. The story of Grace and Liam serves as both a beacon and a reminder that the human spirit's capacity for rebuilding can forge futures defined by understanding, unity, and unyielding hope. Grace's emergence from the shadows of her family drama was nothing short of remarkable, as she embraced her evolving role with a sense of purpose and newfound dignity. Grace's life, once overshadowed by Cynthia's betrayal and Liam's ignorance, had now transformed into a beacon of hope and advocacy for others who found themselves trapped in similar webs. Her experience ignited a spark within her, pushing her to rewrite her narrative not only in her familial circle but beyond into the public sphere. Liam's shift in dynamics, particularly with the introduction of Natalie, amplified the positivity and progress that had come to define their renewed relationship. Gone was the haze of deception and ignorance that had clouded his judgment during his time with Cynthia, replaced now with a clarity that resonated with respect and understanding toward Grace. This transition was not merely a change of partner. It was a marked evolution in Liam's character, illustrating how individuals can learn from past misjudgments and grow into more empathetic and considerate beings. Natalie represented more than just a new beginning for Liam. She stood as a testament to the changes he had embraced. Her presence was gentle yet firm in reinforcing values that resonated with Grace's own beliefs, values that prioritized family bonds and respect over superficial appearances and deceit. Her relationship with Liam blossomed from a foundation of shared respect and understanding, qualities that also deepened her companionship with Grace. This connection underscored an authentic familial bond, one that was not merely born out of bloodline, but out of mutual admiration and genuine affection. Grace saw in Natalie a kindred spirit, an ally who would not only cherish Liam for who he had become, but also support her vision for a close-knit family healed and whole. These emerging dynamics fueled Grace's journey as she leaned into her role as an advocate for elder rights, emboldened by her own experiences to ensure that no one would endure the same betrayal and marginalization she had once faced. Her presence in the public eye was radiant and deliberate, a force that illuminated dark corners with truth and unwavering integrity. What Grace understood innately, and what she now shared with an eager audience, was the power of transformation through adversity. Her story inspired not just individuals but communities and institutions to reflect on how they treated their elders, often the silent bearers of wisdom and history, and to reconsider policies and practices that left them vulnerable to exploitation. Grace's work garnered attention from legislators who sought her counsel in designing laws that would better protect the rights and assets of older citizens, testimony to the profound impact of one woman's resolve to turn personal struggle into societal change. As Grace's influence expanded, so too did her responsibilities. Offers poured in for her to host a talk show focused on elder empowerment and protection against exploitation, a platform from which she could share stories and invite experts to discuss systemic changes. Grace welcomed these opportunities not for personal acclaim, but as conduits to deliver hope and guidance, to be a voice for those who felt powerless. It was this very embrace of activism that served as the backbone for her family's reconstruction. Grace was no longer the overlooked matriarch, whose wealth and status were wildlife instigator origins of strife and betrayal. Instead, her transformation into a national figurehead signaled a shift in perception both inside and outside her family. She had become an embodiment of resilience, a narrative woven with introspection, forgiveness, and an unwavering commitment to justice. In the quiet moments amidst public engagements and family gatherings, Grace would often reflect on the profound shift that had occurred within her family and herself. Liam's journey from a son blinded by lies to a man who cherished honesty and integrity was a testament to the enduring spirit of familial love and respect. It proved that with time, introspection, and effort, past wounds could heal, giving way to relationships grounded in authenticity. Grace's story, though, begun in betrayal and deceit, now celebrated themes of vindication, growth, and ultimately redemption. Her legacy was not just a reflection of her family's repaired dynamics, but a living, evolving ode to the strength of the human spirit in its quest for justice and peace. Through her, many had learned that empowerment was not merely about taking back control, but about sharing it, ensuring that everyone, regardless of age, had a place at the table, ready to speak, ready to be heard. Grace's new role as a beacon of protection and empowerment took a grand leap when she found herself at the helm of a television show dedicated to safeguarding the elderly from exploitation. Her story, a once private tale steeped in personal betrayal and redemption, was now a national narrative that resonated deeply with audiences across the country. Grace, who had transformed from the shadows of invisibility into a prominent advocate for elder rights, was now poised to extend her influence further, reaching those vulnerable souls who perhaps felt just as unseen as she once did. With the lights of the studio glowing softly around her, Grace sat in the hosting chair, no longer simply the wronged matriarch, but a symbol of resilience and empowerment. The cameras captured her every movement, every expression as she introduced the show's mission to viewers. Here lay an opportunity for her to transform her meticulous journey of growth and revenge into a wellspring of guidance and insight for countless others navigating the turbulent waters of elder financial abuse. Her audience, a tapestry of the young and old, were eager to listen, to learn, and to be inspired by Grace's hard-earned wisdom. It was not merely about protecting assets or warding off predators, but about reclaiming dignity. The show sought to arm viewers with practical knowledge, legal tips, psychological strategies, and emotional resilience training that could fortify their defenses against exploitation. Grace's voice echoed through living rooms, evoking a spirit of empowerment with each word, each story shared. She brought to life the tales of those who had quietly suffered the lessons learned from others like her who had emerged emboldened from the depths of manipulation and deceit. As Grace framed each segment, her approach was logical, calm, and assertive, mirroring the journey of her past. She drew upon her own experiences while inviting experts to delve into financial literacy for seniors, legal pathways for justice, and psychological resilience techniques, all presented in a form accessible to her audience. She was not simply handing out advice. She was crafting a framework for a community to come together, to be informed, and to remain vigilant against risks that loomed large but often unnoticed. Her transformation into a host symbolized a broader societal shift toward recognizing the sometimes silent, often hidden challenges faced by the elderly. Grace had tapped into a collective resolve, one that resonated with her audience's personal quests for autonomy and self-protection. Through her guidance, the viewers learned to discern signs of manipulation, to trust in their instincts, and to understand the mechanisms within which predators operated. The show's impact went beyond individual empowerment. It fostered a societal dialogue that challenged traditional notions of aging. Grace, with her poised demeanor and sharp insight, became an esteemed figure in this movement, championing a vision that extended protection and respect for elders. Her story, a vivid narrative once mired in familial betrayal, had matured into an architect of communal resilience, offering not simply tales of caution, but pathways of redemption and personal growth. Grace's journey from a wronged grandmother to a national guide on justice mirrored a broader cultural awakening to issues of elder abuse and empowerment. Each episode of her show reinforced the foundational themes of resilience, education, and shared experience. The elderly were no longer to be seen as passive beneficiaries, but as active, informed participants in safeguarding their destinies, richly inspired by Grace's transformation. While the cameras captured Grace's adeptness in communicating these themes, her true victory lay in the fact that through her show, she had sparked a revolution of awareness. Families were beginning to engage in open dialogues about estate planning, seniors were motivated to educate themselves on their rights, and younger generations were encouraged to view their elders with newfound value and respect. Grace's television show was not just a platform for stories but a living testament to the power of proactive empowerment and informed justice. In every corner of the country, Grace's evolving narrative of empowerment and advocacy continued to gather momentum, a compelling reminder of the strength and wisdom that can illuminate even the darkest corners of betrayal. Her show was a new chapter, a bold declaration that the path of resilience was for everyone to traverse, guided by Grace's unwavering commitment to dignity and justice. While she had embarked on this journey seeking revenge, she had achieved something far greater, a legacy of empowerment for herself and others who would follow in her steadfast footsteps. Grace's transformation from a wronged grandmother to an advocate for elder empowerment was nothing short of remarkable. Her journey resonated far beyond her personal experiences, striking a chord with many who had faced similar injustices but lacked the means to fight back. The narrative of a woman wronged by those she trusted most, and the subsequent path she carved in response created ripples of awareness that stirred communities across the nation. In a world where the elderly often found themselves invisible, Grace was a beacon of clarity and resolve. Her story had begun in a shadowed corner of betrayal where her daughter-in-law, Cynthia's theft of a cherished family heirloom, was the catalyst for an awakening, a severing of complacency that had long held her in its time grasp. Grace's late husband Mark had taught her the importance of preserving one's legacy, and with that ethos deeply rooted, she embarked on a mission. This was no longer just a personal vendetta against Cynthia. It was a public battle cry against an epidemic of elder abuse and exploitation. The cameras that followed Grace now served as both witnesses and amplifiers to her narrative. Her show was a tapestry woven from interviews, legal insights, and stories from other elders who had experienced similar betrayals. Her voice, steady and unwavering, became synonymous with advocacy and justice. Through her televised platform, viewers watched as Grace, backed by her ever-supportive lawyer and newly reconciled son Liam, navigated the legal tides with strategic sophistication. What Grace realized was the potent mixture of law and empathy, the weaving of personal narrative into a structure that others could follow. As she recounted the stories of others who had stood before her silenced and burdened by the sins of those they loved, there was solace found not just in the justice she sought, but in the understanding that she was not alone. This shared experience, the very thing that her daughter-in-law had underestimated, became the cornerstone of her powerful crusade. From the onset, Grace knew that visibility was her strongest ally. With each episode, she broke down the complexities of estate planning and the crucial importance of holding conversations about wills and financial security earlier in life. It was through these educational moments that the fabric of familial relationships was reinforced, even mended at times in households anew. The middle-aged children watching began to see their parents less as elder shadows fading into oblivion and more as historians of their own legacies, narratives to be safeguarded. Her impact was not just contained to screens. Town halls and community centers filled with those eager to listen, learn, and fortify their own defenses against the specter of betrayal. Grace's presence commanded attention not in the way of an authoritarian but as an elder, nurturing a garden of awareness. Her wisdom, hard-earned and shared generously, mapped a route towards a future where elderly were respected stewards of their own destinies rather than pawns for grasping hands. In retrospect, Grace's movement was one of reclamation. She reclaimed her dignity, her family's honor, and the understanding that her life, more than its twilight, was filled with purpose. She built bridges where there had been chasms of misunderstanding and elder neglect. The son she had thought lost to Cynthia's machinations was now her greatest ally, their bond stronger for the shared battle. Reports came pouring in of others who had watched and followed, who had broken free from a paralytic passivity into a bright realm of reclaiming their power. Grace's narrative was a testament to resilience that transcended personal retaliation. It was a narrative that chronicled how deeply human pain and dignity could intertwine, creating a tapestry not easily severed by betrayal, theft, or deception. Her story, once one of individual betrayal, evolved into a collective anthem of empowerment, a guide to others who sought to climb out of darkness and into the light of their autonomy. As Grace stood, her voice resonating across the airwaves, she knew that what she had built was so much more than a campaign. It was a legacy of education and strength, a lighthouse in the stormy sea of elder rights. Others might have chosen simpler paths, but Grace knew that her journey from the confines of personal grievance to the stages of national awareness was the most enduring revenge. She had turned her story into a beacon of hope and resilience, leading many others to the shores of understanding and respect, leaving an indelible mark on the world she knew and loved. In a quiet corner of the world where echoes hold more power than proclamations, Grace stood as a testament to the quietude of victory. The chaos of Cynthia's downfall had crescendoed and then ebbed into silence, much like a storm finally losing its fervor. Alone in the remnants of her folly, Cynthia staggered amidst the ruins of her own making. Echoes of her deceit bounced back, reverberating in her empty house, where trust used to reside but now lingered only as a shadow of its former self, leaving her to confront the solitude she had inadvertently sown. Grace, on the other hand, no longer needed the clamor of victory. Her world, once rife with turmoil and treachery, had begun to settle into a landscape of serenity. The tumultuous events that had shaken her existence now acted as the winds that chiseled her into a more resilient form. She had emerged not to proclaim her triumph, but to bask silently in the newfound peace of her autonomy. The battlefield where she once stood was now a garden tended by the resilience only a long-fought battle could sow. And you, if you stood in the same shoes, would you have possessed the tenacity to wait, to endure the oppressive silence, allowing time to peel away the layers of betrayal until only truth remained? It is in the patience of quiet defiance where true ambition harbors strength, silently biding time until shadows morph into light. The world of accusations and heartbreak no longer defined Grace. She had woven herself into an existence where her presence didn't need to shout over the void. She had become the stillness that filled it. Silence was no longer an empty chamber but a sacred space she inhabited with newfound grace and dignity. The vindication of her perseverance was not in spoken victories but in the hushed breaths where life slowly began to unfurl anew, untainted by the specters of past adversities. Forgiveness lay on the periphery, a door slightly ajar. It was not where Grace placed her focus, but the opportunity for closure lingered like a delicate scent in the background of her narrative. The unlocked door was neither an invitation nor a denial, but a testament to choices freely given and beholden to none. While the ring, a silent character of its own, lay quietly on the floor, a symbol of what had been tussled over yet now considered trivial in the grand design of her rejuvenated life. Absorbed in this peaceful transition, Grace's journey circled back to the very essence of transformation. The light shone on the figure she had become, a beacon of grace, undistorted by bitterness, resilience, unswayed by despair. And like a painting memorized by those wise enough to stand in its presence, she had become the art of deliverance herself. In this newfound existence, some endings are not formed by words but by the absence of them, lingering like an unspoken promise in the fading glow of dusk. There are no grand closures, only the echo of footsteps retreating softly into a sanctuary of freedom traced by a map only the brave have tread. Some stories silence the world not by their end but through their quiet commencement. Thus the world turns silent, and in that silence Grace found what was essential, a quiet kingdom built on the fortitude of rebirth under the infinite canopy of understanding. The universe rotates as before, unperturbed by the achievements of mankind, leaving open the question for every heart. Would you stand in symbiosis with silence, waiting patiently until the inherent truth of life reveals itself to you? For in some tales, the most profound victories are those that conclude not in loudness, but in the sacred embrace of quietude.